The failure to act with sufficient ambition to avert the climate catastrophe will be the greatest moral failure of our time.
Making changes takes courage, and if we don't change things, we won't have a future.
We need a president who respects science, who understands that the damage from climate change is already here.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. Change is coming, whether you like it or not.
Zero Carbon
Eastall.
Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista Series 2, The Manifesto. I'm Ian Collins. That time of the week when we delve into the environmental files and pull out this week's biggest stories. The chief of all things green is the environmentalist and owner of Ecotricity, Dale Vince. Morning to you, Dale.
Yeah, morning, Ian. You ready for your holiday?
Yeah, well, I'm not having one, but I'm off for a little bit. Because actually our first question says, what does a summer break look like to you then, Dale? Jetting away anywhere?
Well, you know me, I'm going to jump in my chopper.
I was thinking exactly that, yeah. The helicopters, when we finish this, you're straight onto the helipad on the roof of the building.
That's it. Now, actually, I'm going away at the weekend to Cornwall for a week.
Nice.
Yeah, and my favourite kind of holiday, really, a bit of a road trip. I like Cornwall a lot. I like British weather, although it's getting a bit hot lately. But that's what I'm doing.
It's pissing hard at the moment, isn't it? Well, not this very moment, but last week. I mean, I think you made the point on the last episode that you don't any longer need to read news to see what's changing. You just need to look out the window.
It just keeps happening, doesn't it? And I mean, just a couple of days ago now, London flooded, didn't it? First we have a heat wave, then we have flash floods. And scientists are saying this is the new normal weather now that we can expect in Britain. Heat waves, flash floods.
It is. And I was looking at this first story as well. Scientists declaring climate emergency 2 years ago say the Earth's vital signs have actually worsened, which this factors into that.
Yeah, that's right. And, I think the evidence is all around us. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen wildfires out of control in the US and Canada and even Siberia, which is kind of like a cold country, isn't it? And flooding in China and Europe and now London, but the evidence is there in the news for all of us. I saw another article. Somebody picked up a report from the 70s that forecast what the world was going to look like if we didn't get to grips with the climate and some other issues. And they validated the findings of the report against the world today, actually.
Wow.
They said, you know what, those guys got it more or less right.
Yeah, so the signs were all there. They followed the science, as it were. It's funny that I looked at this story as well about the idea that the signs have worsened. And this was 2 years ago. 11,000 scientists came together to declare this. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we do this on the radio, and you've been involved in these debates, Dale, and I know we'll do more of them over the years. Somebody will always find a scientist that doesn't agree with that, and they will hold them up and they say, but have you listened to Dr. Emmanuel Splat from the University of Illinois? Because he's got a different view. And you think, well, okay, he's allowed a different view. It's a democracy, but it's him against 11,000. So I know where my money is if I'm going down to Paddy Power.
Yeah. And I think the BBC are kind of infamous for doing this, aren't they, in an attempt to create some kind of false idea of balance.
Yeah.
They will dig out the rogue, inverted commas, scientists to balance against the 1,100 or whatever it is,
Which is usually Nigel Lawson. Who's not a scientist, which just makes it even funnier, really.
Yeah. It's a shame because it gives a false impression, doesn't it, that there is a genuine debate that, that you might not be able to make your mind up. It could be one thing, could be other, when the truth couldn't be more different.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I think the BBC went through a phase of not having that alternative view on. Do you remember this? They said, look, this is a settled view, so it would be ridiculous to to look around. And then James Dellingpole or somebody complained and said, this isn't right. So they kind of crapped themselves and rolled over and went, all right, we better get Nigel Lawson out then. Is he still alive? Let's knock on the door of the mortuary and see. And so they wheeled him out. And they did that really just under kind of pressure from certain groups that said you need the alternative view.
It's a shame. He's a French citizen, I think. He's one of these Brexiteers that got his whole family European passports before the big day.
The way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. But I actually got a BBC experience of my own. Right? In the it was about 20 years ago, probably. We put up a huge windmill outside Swaffham in Norfolk, with a visitors platform and all this kind of stuff. It was Britain's first megawatt scale windmill, actually.
Wow.
And BBC came along. It was super popular, this project. And they spent half a day walking around the streets of Swaffham, and they said to me, we just can't find anybody that doesn't like it. We're going to have to try harder. This is back in the days of having to have some balance. There must be something wrong.
There's got to be. It's kind of curious. And that figure of 11,000, of course, isn't even all the scientists that I mean. There's even more that will put their name to the, frankly, the sort of irredeemable facts, which, I get it every day. We get it with coronavirus as well, where somebody says, have you not seen this report? And it's usually, it's never somebody who currently works in the NHS. It's never like a senior neurologist or something that works there now. It's usually some retired bloke who got struck off 30 years ago, who's sort of held up as the totemic figure of truth.
Yeah, I think the internet's really bad for that, because
Very.
it just gives a platform for all kinds of cranky stuff.
Correct, yeah. Here's another headline as well. Climate change coming even closer to home, says Sadiq Khan. I mean, this is reference to the flooding you just mentioned. So, we have senior politicians at least acknowledging this now.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I wrote a piece for The Express this week about exactly that, climate change coming home, because, for a long time, it's been something that's been distant to us in terms of geography and time. It's been a problem for the future in other parts of the world. But we can see it happening now in the West or the North, whatever you call us, us developing countries, developed countries.
Yeah.
We're developing in some sense.
Oh, I think you're right. So, yeah.
And it's happening to us now as well.
Civilization quote, isn't it?
That's right. And it's happening right now. Climate change no longer is something that's going to happen in 30 or 40 years, maybe. It's happening right now. It's happening every day,
Yeah. Here's a nice one from Jordan, who says, I've just graduated and you sound like the type of person I want to work for. Do you advertise jobs?
Yeah, we do on our website.
ecotricity.co.uk/jobs.
I have a look, Jordan. That's where we put all of our jobs online. So good luck. Maybe see you one day.
Absolutely. Here's another one. Too many Britons still see heat waves as a positive thing. That's one of the problems, isn't it? It's the kind of hard sell of this kind of crazy weather. We're a bit annoyed when it rains, but when the sun comes out, we say, oh, this is fantastic. Well, some moan about it, but it's fantastic. Look, it's beautiful. I've got my new shorts on, my new Ralph Lauren T-shirt. Everything's fantastic. But it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's not that fantastic set against the very things we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, it probably goes back to the roots of all of this and the language that was chosen, global warming. It just sounds too friendly and too nice and too specific as well. I mean, okay, the whole world is warming up, but it's about much more than just that. People take that to mean, we're going to have sunny days. It's not about that at all. The heating of the whole planet is about f***ing up the weather, actually, and the whole world becoming an inhospitable environment for us to live in.
I want to hear Fiona Bruce on the news talking exactly those terms, Dale.
Yeah.
It would just been far more, I think she'd hit a bigger audience.
She might cut through.
She just came on and said, and now the news at 6 o'clock, the weather is really f***ed up today. I mean, who wouldn't be watching that?
Instead, what we have is Allegra Stratton in the Telegraph telling us all, if we don't rinse our plates before we put them in the dishwasher, then we could take a micro step to saving the planet.
Yeah, is that as good? Is that the new Tory policy on climate change?
Micro steps, yeah, that is. I think that's the new Tory policy.
I mean, fair enough. It's all these things are better than nothing, but it is curious that that somebody picks up of all the big things that you might think they'd be talking about.
Oh, I mean, listen, we're running COP26, right? And this is the best we've got. Don't rinse your plates. She says your favorite brand of shampoo may come available in a solid bar in cardboard. So buy that and freeze your bread instead of throwing it away. These are government's top tips for us to get to zero carbon. Fantastic. I hope the whole world is watching. They will be impressed.
Yeah. She could have added, don't build a coal mine or a new oil field.
Or a third runway at Heathrow.
That might have been on there.
Don't spend 27 billion on a road program, Boris. There's so many things, so many big things that need doing.
Yeah, the shampoo policy out there.
Yeah, and need not doing as well. It's incredible.
This in from Sherna, who says, any plans to fly the EU flag on the front of your headquarters again? We miss it every time we visit Stroud.
Oh, shame, really. It's funny because back in the day we were flying it in the heat of all of that Brexit, debacle, and some people kind of dobbed us into the council. They said, "Oh, they don't have planning permission for that flag." But ironically, But while we were in the EU, we didn't need planning permission to fly that flag. Now that we're not in the EU, we would need planning permission. And we haven't got any plans at the moment. I would do it for the hell of it, actually. So maybe
what kind of supercharged jerk merchant came up with that plan as a rule? It's a bloody flag, for God's sake.
Oh, I know. It's planning, isn't it? You have to have planning for everything. But not flying a flag of the country you're in, apparently.
Flags, that's just crazy. I love those stories. The Prime Minister's COP26 spokesperson gives a suggestion. Oh, sorry, we've just done that story.
That one, yeah.
We've
You're recycling now, Ian. I like it.
Yeah, I know. We are recycling the stories because we are leading the way. This is how it needs to work. Chris on Facebook.
Government. We should be in government. This is how it works.
Get Allegra out. I can do that job. And Chris on Facebook, know any good vegan ice cream, Dale? That and cheese are stopping me from going plant-based. We went somewhere at the weekend with the kids, and I'm trying to think where it was, but they got ice cream like in a little tub. And it was vegan ice cream.
Yeah, it's definitely out there. There's quite a few brands that do it now. The one I can think of is Swedish Glace. I haven't eaten ice cream for a long time because I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of sugar, but it's out there definitely.
I mean, in terms of vegan food, I mean, I know we've been in this territory many times. I mean, it's not even those days when, being a vegetarian was tricky because you couldn't find a vegetarian option on a menu, and now that's not even a thing. And I know it's still a little difficult to sometimes find a vegan option on a menu, but what's interesting is people choosing vegan if they're not vegan. There's nothing contentious or weird about that any longer. Yeah. So that's a huge kind of wall that's been knocked down, as it were.
Yeah. And I think one of the helpful things to do is just not label the stuff vegan, just call it what it is. Describe it for the ingredients that are in it and the dish that it is. Yeah. Label it vegan and you just put people off.
Absolutely. So we're taking a bit of a break here, Dale.
Yeah, but I've got a story before we do.
Yeah, please.
If I may.
Go for it.
So the government announced a big investment into research for cleaner lorries yesterday. Yeah. It's 2 million quid, which is enough to buy about 2 lorries, I think.
Yeah.
And they see it as a battle of electric lorries, which they say are going to struggle to be long distance because they need more batteries and batteries are heavy, overlooking the fact that lorries are very good at carrying weight. They carry, 40 tons typically. So in a better place to do that than a car. So a battle between EVs, hydrogen, and this new idea of lorry trams. So imagine a lorry on the motorway with a little tram-type bogie on its roof, hooking up to some overhead power cables for a little bit of a charge-up while it's on the motorway. So they're doing a study into that. And I think the whole thing is sad, really. I mean, 2 million quid is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean of what the government spends money on, particularly in fossil fuels. Yeah. And it's a big old distraction, because EV lorries are coming. And, if there's a platform for which it will work, it's something that can drag 40 tons up and down the road.
Absolutely. So 2 million quid on lorries, 37 billion pounds on test and trace, which has been an unmitigating disaster.
Yeah. And all the fossil fuel subsidies and stuff that's,
still out there.
Still out there. Yeah. Right. So that was nice. But I got one last story, which I think is really exciting. I don't know if anybody out there saw it. Philip Morris called for a ban on cigarettes by 2030 because they're harmful. Wow. Yeah. Pinch me. That's like a dream, isn't it?
But what was interesting about that, the ban only in this country, I think, or Western countries, because they're going to go on flogging them in China and Africa and everywhere else where they sell their cigarettes.
Okay, where the harm doesn't matter.
Exactly, yes.
But actually below that headline was something even more interesting, because they're pivoting into e-cigarettes, whereby things don't get burned, they get vaporized somehow, and that's less harmful. And they've got their own technology whereby you can put tobacco into an e-cigarette thing and get the nicotine from it without burning the tobacco. So they've got a plan for a future business model for themselves. So by calling for the ban of cigarettes by 2030, they aren't calling for their own demise.
No, of course they're not.
They're ready to pivot into this new world.
Yeah, to convert you to another way of smoking.
But still, it's a great model for oil and gas companies. How long before one of them does exactly this and says, let's end production of, let's start with new fossil fuels, let's end the exploration for fossil fuels first, but let's end the burning of fossil fuels. Pick a date, pivot into it.
You know, that bloke that runs William Morris, he's like Florence Nightingale, isn't he, really? He's kind of there for the benevolence of the rest of the world.
It's an amazing story, a really bold thing to do. And you know, I think there's a pattern there that we can hope for. Food companies doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Setting dates for salt and sugar and fat, animal products, that kind of stuff, you know, because we've all got to make the transition, all companies, big and small.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, the faster the big guys get their heads around this, the better for all of us.
Of course it is. Well, listen, Dale, have a cracking break. We are back, of course, for season 3 on the 10th of September. So enjoy Cornwall.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, and enjoy your month off as well. I don't know what I'm going to do on a Friday morning, but I'll find something.
Oh, we'll just hook up and have some beers, shall we?
That's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all, is it, really?
Let's hook up with Mike as well.
Indeed. Let's make that happen.
Let's work on him over the summer.
Yeah, I think so. Dale, have a good one. Speak to you in September. Don't forget to follow this podcast from your podcast provider so you get each new episode automatically. Leave a review there as well. And do follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince. And we'll be back 10th of September for season 3.
Zero carbon
east of